Hi, I'm Brian Kramer, author of Human to Human and Shareology. Today on the show, we talk about why loss of context is affecting us in humanity, how to inject human moments into our automated world, and surprise, how Amazon is the most empathetic company in the world. Stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, he's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives. Let me ask you, what do you need to do to up-level your leadership? One of the reasons we find change so challenging is because it can seem so big. But what if we could actually create epic change by making small, even 1-degree shifts human to human? Stay tuned, because that's where we're going on today's show. I'm your host, Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into the one thing in your business that changes everything by transforming meaning into action. If you're curious to know more, go to dovbaron.com. This episode of Leadership and Loyalty is brought to you in part by our other podcast, which is Curiosity Bites. Curiosity Bites is the answer to the question, how can we bring people together who completely disagree? This is exactly what your mind, your heart, and your soul have been craving. It's your chance to sit in on some very real and oftentimes intense conversations with some of the world's most interesting people. We're talking about astronauts, neuroscientists, neurosurgeons, philosophers, holy people, quantum physicists, skeptics, entrepreneurs, and multi-Grammy award-winning entertainers. These are some of the most fascinating people on the planet, and some of them you might automatically disagree with, and then when you listen, you'll find them truly fascinating. Simply go to dovbaron.com, that's dovbaron.com, and find out how you can sign up for and sink your teeth into a delicious episodes of Curiosity Bites. As always, you can find us on both. For both those podcasts, you can find them on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever it is that you tune into podcasts. And as always, we really need your help in staying relevant. So please go on over there to wherever it is you listen. Do us a favor. Rate, review, and subscribe to the show. If you are a regular listener, then a big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners. And we are honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. You can also listen to us on Google Home or Alexa by saying play Dov Baron podcast. Again, thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. We are living in, to say the least, interesting times, as the proverb goes. The landscapes of local, national, global economics have changed and are continuing to change alongside of climate change, mass migration, geopolitical forces, along with data-driven shifts to technology that make everything more convenient and digitally more connected by giving us all the data we could possibly need, all the we would ever possibly want to know in our B2B or B2C world. Meanwhile, the first world is dealing with an epidemic. No, I am not talking about COVID-19, but an epidemic of loneliness. We have been so focused on our B2C and B2B businesses that we've forgotten about the most important one, which is the H to H, the human to human side. So what small shifts can we all make right now to enjoy the technology while becoming more human to human focused? Well, let's find out together, because our guest today is Brian Kramer. He's the author of 2 best-selling books, a Forbes contributor, a TED Talk speaker. Brian Kramer is a renowned business strategist who serves high-performing coaches, consultants, and leaders in accelerating their businesses. He's a global keynote speaker who has presented all over the world to organizations including MasterCard, L'Oreal, NASA, GoDaddy, Harvard, Charles Schwab, South by Southwest, International Curry Institute, Verizon, and many, many more. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and help me to welcome the proud father of the human global movement, Mr. Brian Kramer! Welcome, Brian.
That is an intro.
It is,
That is
man.
an intro.
That is definitely that is what it is. So starting there, we always like to start the show by asking the question, which is what, in this world of influencers where everybody thinks they're an influencer, at least, who is somebody who's influenced you in the way that you look at leadership? And when I say that, I want to be clear. I mean, it could be somebody we don't know. It could be somebody we would never think of. Who's somebody who's had massive influence on you as a leader?
Oh, wow. Somebody who has had massive influence on me as a leader is, gosh, that's a great question. You hit me right on the chin with that one. There's so many.
Of course.
There are a lot of people that do that to me, and so I'm gonna have to go with I'm gonna go with somebody that you don't know. So
Good.
I'm gonna go with my mentor that took me under his wing out of college.
Yes.
And he hired me right out of college, and he took me and I worked for him not only out of college, but then went to work for another company, and then came back, and then I came back and I started to work for him, and we started another company together, grew that company, and it ended up he started another company, and he ended up giving me a P&L and teaching me how to grow a business. And that was just phenomenal. He gave me he gave me my own P&L, and he taught me how to grow a business. And it was just.
What is the single lesson, if you were to boil it down, that he gave you? And maybe it was not in verbiage and not actually saying it to you, but maybe in demonstration. It could have been either.
I'll boil it down to one line. 90% done is 100% incomplete.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll boil it down to one line. 90% done is 100% incomplete. Finish what you start. That's exactly what he taught me. Finish what you start. Every single day he taught me finish what you start. If you're going to start it, finish it. And so that's what he, everything that we did, if you're going to take it on and complete it. And so we did. And we brought such we had such fun, and there was no ego, and there's no anything, and we smashed it. We killed it. Everything about that company we did incredibly. But at the same,
was that the marketing agency?
Yeah, it was the marketing agency before I started and went out and did my own marketing agency. So he taught me how to build and grow my own marketing agency.
Now, you had a very successful marketing agency, and as I spoke about in the industry, in the intro rather, you had this very successful marketing agency, and then suddenly you were catapulted into the spotlight, which is of course is H2H, human to human, which became in many ways kind of a beast that consumed you, and particularly in this context of finish what you started. So you're running an agency, it's a full-time business, obviously, you've got employees, you've suddenly accidentally fumbled into this H2H, it's catapulted you into the major spotlight, and now it's consuming you. Talk to us a little bit about that journey there, because oftentimes I think that we create our own Frankenstein monsters that eat us until we are able to wrestle with it and bring it into what we actually want it to be.
Exactly right. Yeah. Excuse me. I was in this place where we built an agency of 30 plus people. We had an incredible agency where we were working with Netflix and MasterCard and Cisco and I mean, you name it. We were working with some incredible brands and we were doing some incredible work. We were small but mighty. We weren't a massive agency, but we were a small but mighty agency. And so
Sure.
we're doing great work. And at the same time, uh, my message took off. This message of human to human, and it was a message that was needed. It really did land well for others. And I remember when it happened, and when it happened, it was one of those moments when everybody, when social media was just fresh, and social media isn't that old.
Nope.
Even still, even today, it's not that old. And so all of a sudden now, when you think back about social media, we think, man, it's like been around forever. One of the things about it that happened that day was it was the right room of marketers. It was the right room of influencers. It was the right room of all the people. So everything about it was right. And when I shared it, it was up on screen. There's no B2B, there's no B2C, it's H to H. And it got shared out, and it got over 120 million impressions over the next 48 hours. And over 200 people were blogging about it over the next week. And it was just crazy. And it sent me on to this like incredible journey in this wonderful place over the next few years of travel. And speaking and just unbelievable like places to travel and be, and with all these people. And at the same time, I lost my my ability to be at home with my agency, and I wasn't leading in the agency anymore. So I wasn't there. I was leading from the road.
Right.
And so it changed the impact that I could make from where I was at. And I had to change the way that I led. I had to find a new way of leadership. I had to find a new way of being. I also had to find a new impact that I wanted to make on the world, because it changed things for me. I didn't plan for that to happen. And so that really changed things. At the same time, I also ate a lot, because airports have different kinds of food than you at that time, at least, and I think still do. They don't have the healthiest of food, and so and hotels and all that. And so I started putting on massive amounts of weight. And I got type 2 diabetes, and I just like, I was a reverse country song. And so, I'm sitting here traveling, I'm putting on lots of weight. I'm like trying to run a company from the road. I'm over 250 days a year I'm from the road. And so finally I come home and I say to Courtney, my wife, who is we were running the agency together. And I said, I think I got to slow down. This is too much. And I got to really slow down. And she said, me too. This is just too much. And so we actually thought, let's just exit this. Let's exit everything, and let's take a step back. And so we did. And we exited the agency. I exited speaking. I exited everything for the sake of health, for the sake of family, for the sake of everything, and took a step back. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
So talk to us about that, because it's one of the things that has actually come up at this time, post-pandemic. People are actually reevaluating their lives. They're starting to look at things and say, hold on a second, is this what I want? Because they've been at home, and they're suddenly realizing that it's actually given them a little bit of time to reevaluate their process. And in the reevaluation of how they've been working, how they've been living, many of them are saying, okay, they're saying exactly what you want. I'd like to take a step back, but that's a pretty terrifying idea for most people. What do you say to that for the person who is in a similar position to where you were? They're feeling overworked, they're feeling overstressed, but they'd like to take a step back, but it just seems terrifying.
Well, so the first thing that you've got to do is you have to assess what is it that is it that you're getting out of the situation that you're in. What is the situation that you're in that what is it that's it's giving you right now that is worthwhile for you? It was not worthwhile for me.
Right.
You most of the time it's not going to be worthwhile. Number two, one of the things you have to also do is you have to have somebody else who's going to help you through that, whether it's a partner, it's a coach, it's a leader, it's a spouse, it's somebody else. So find a person who can help you through this and is going to question you. And because we are going to not see our own blind spots.
Of course,
there are blind spots everywhere. And number three is that that we're going to come up with every excuse in the world not to lose the weight, not to leave our current situation, not to take repercussions for what we're going through. So what would it look like if we actually lived a better life? Ask the question, what would it look like if we lived a better business, a better place? We're in a better, wonderful, if you actually completely reinvented everything, what would that look like? Right. Like completely, like ask those questions, ask yourself the hard questions. And if you can answer those questions and you can come back and say with all honesty that you're in the best place possible, then stay. Sure. But if you can't, then you have to make some changes. Now the transition is the hard part.
Exactly.
That is going to be the hard part for sure. I'm not going to say it's not going to be easy, but you have your answer.
So the interesting thing for me, though, that I found as in our previous conversation was this dichotomy, and the dichotomy was, you had stumbled onto this H2H, this idea of human to human. It took off, massively with 120 million impressions. You're suddenly on tour, and in many ways, you are very much human to human. You're out there speaking, meeting people, but you're not human to human with the people who are closest to you, being your partner, your business, the people who work for you. You're kind of most removed from those people. And it's very interesting to me because I've been a speaker for 30 odd years. We'll go with that. And, it's very interesting to me that I am yet to meet a speaker, and I'm going to, I've been a speaker a long time, so I know I'm talking about myself too. I've yet to meet a speaker who isn't teaching what they need to learn. So, here's the human to human guy going, oh, look, I've gotten heavy. I don't see my family, and I'm not there with the people who are closest to me, but I am making human to human, and I'm spreading this message, but I'm kind of not in it. Were you aware of that at the end when you decided to take a step back?
That's a wonderful question. So I was human to human when the message first started.
Yep.
The message pulled me away from it.
Yeah.
And while I was delivering it is when it pulled me away from being it.
Yeah.
And now that the pandemic happened, I have PTSD from wanting to go out and do it again.
Yeah, I think we've all got a bit of that. We can all feel that.
Right. So now things are different, and now I want to redefine what human to human is.
Yeah.
And that is totally different now. So
how is it different? That's important, because how is it different?
Well, I don't think that I have to go travel and do all those things to be human to human. I don't have to be on stage in front of people and be out there doing what I did in order to be human to human. I don't think that any of us do. I don't think that anybody has to be doing a lot of what we think we need to be doing, pushing all of our stuff out on social media in order to be human to human. There's a lot of things that we're doing, ads, funnels, landing pages, sales pages, things that we think we need to do in marketing that are so far from human to human that aren't that, and yet we do them. And if we actually just picked up a phone and called people, or asked them just for coffee over Zoom these days, but coffee, it's so much simple. There's so much simplicity in what we could be doing.
Yeah.
And it won't kill us. It will not kill us.
So let's go with that for a minute, because we're coming towards the end of the first part of this 2-part show. And I want to address that piece you just said there, which is human to human doesn't have to be out on a stage in front of all of those people, but we are social creatures. We love human connection. We all need it to a lesser or greater degree, depending on the individual, but we do need that. And so I think that in many, many ways, that's a lot of what people have been missing, is the human to human contact that happened during the pandemic. So, we've got isolation, we had designated isolation, and, and now we're talking about the other side of that, which is Zoom fatigue. So talk to us about what is the other option that you see? Because you said you don't have to do it. Okay, what's the option?
Yeah. Well, the other option is that I can go. So at this point, I can take my time. First of all, I'm not in a rush. Everything can be enjoyed. We can be doing things more slowly. We can take things at a pace that everything's going to be okay. Number two is there's so much time to explore a relationship now in a hybrid universe, where we can now use remote. Not that I want to be Zoom all the time, at all, but using Zoom is okay now. We just verified it. Like, we're all okay being over Zoom. So using that as a tool now has okayed all conferences to go all in on having this as a tool. So I can travel via Zoom. Number three is the power of no. Maybe I should move that to number one. It's one of the most critical things, I think, that would have probably helped me back in my day when I was just saying yes to all that travel. I mean, I probably did, and I'm sure you did too, Dove, where I said yes to 4 keynotes in 2 weeks in 4 countries. And the money was delicious, but the travel was hard, and it really killed me, and I shouldn't have done it. And we've all been there on some level where, and I'm not saying like everybody has this issue where they said yes to those 4 things, but we've said yes to things that we shouldn't have for the sake of our health.
Yes.
And what that just fills us with things that are not going to serve us. And so how do we take a step back and look at the power of no and go, okay, that's not going to serve us. So the power of no is huge. The last piece I would say is, how do we create a place where I can come at something and shape it so that I can look at my schedule across the board and look at it and say, okay, I'm going to do X over this year, and I'm going to stick to that. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to cross over that. So I'm creating and shaping my life. It's not being shaped for me. And so control.
Most people are reactive to,
totally,
especially, and I'm as guilty as anybody, but we're reactive to, quote, opportunities, right?
Absolutely. We're
as
all
opposed-
reactive to opportunities. Right.
Right. And particularly, if we're being fed mass fear around lack and the possibility of less of everything, then it's kind of, well, okay, you better grab it now. And so we're reactive to opportunity as opposed to responsive to who we are.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we were to take a proactive approach, whether it's to your calendar, to look at things and say, I'm not doing anything more than X, Y, and Z. I mean, my son, when he was 11, he pulled me aside in between plane trips, and he pulled me into his room, and he said, Dad, I don't think you're going to meet our grandkids, your grandkids. I don't think you're going to be around. You just got diabetes, you're overweight, you're never home, you're not seeing our games, you're not seeing anything, like you're sick all the time, you have colds all the time, you're running all the time, you're just this. And I was just in tears, like, oh my God.
How old was he?
He was 11.
Wow.
And it just blew me away that, he was a mirror for me.
Sure.
And it just completely, it really, and that was the impetus. He was the impetus behind the whole thing. So I flew out the next day on another trip, and unfortunately, and then came home, and then that's when I said, I got to change things. This is it. And sometimes we have a life-changing event like that, and sometimes we are the life-changing event.
Yeah.
And
what a beautiful way to end this part of this part before we go into part two, because that awakening that comes from somebody, there's an old saying, you got to do it for yourself. And I always say, yeah, if you have to do it for yourself, all the other shit you're doing that you say is for everybody else, you're doing that for yourself. And it often takes the awakening of somebody who you love more than yourself to make you awaken and say, you know what, I gotta stop. Whether it's the drugs or the alcohol or the overeating or the working yourself to a death or whatever it is. And it's the love of that person that sometimes that's what it takes. And it is a very difficult decision. But as you said, Brian, we all have to take that into assessment. This is the end of our first part of our show here with Brian Kramer, who is the father of the H2H global movement, and he's a best-selling author. And you can find out more about Brian. We're going to talk more on part two. We'll give you all the details of how you can find out about him, about his books, and of course about the movement and how you can be part of that. We'll see you on the next click. So that's our time. We'll see you. Stay curious to the next click. See you then.